that burned out on me, but beautiful. All right, pals. It is a solo New Year's Eve this year. Not usually my thing, but I'm going to embrace it. Not for really any reason other than it falls in the middle of the week, and I've got friends out of town, and my sister's doing something, and my parents have more of a social life than I do, so I'm here by myself with my dog. But I figured that it's kind of in theme for how I want to forge my 2025 path. I don't really like going out, but I will do it if my friends are going, because obviously I like to see my friends, like it's a good time. But I don't like to drink, and I'm such a social drinker that it's really hard for me in social settings to refrain from drinking. So I know that if I were to go out tonight with the intention of not drinking, I would anyway. And I thought I could center tonight around some like wellnessy type things that I want to center my 2025 around. So you saw me sauning earlier. That's gonna be a good trend for me for detoxing. And tonight, we're gonna be making some sourdough. I'm bringing the sourdough back to the channel. I know I've been MIA on the channel for a little bit. For those of you who might be new, I live with my parents currently, and I've been here for a year. So it's just like, it's their place. So I'm not as invigorated to create. But tonight I have passed myself. I'm able to kind of create the vibe we've got going on. One second, my dog wants to go out. Anyway, sorry about that. So I'm going to get some stuffed shells in the oven for my solo New Year's Eve dinner. I've got some scrumptious lemon ricotta stuffed shells with some hot honey. It's really good. My mom made it. This is her second time making it. I can link the recipe below. It's a crowd pleaser. It's really good. I have to put it in the oven covered first. Covered for 20, uncovered for 20. The dog is going ballistic in the back. Okay, I'm making a double batch tonight. All right, I am back with what you need to start your loaf. So, I have my active starter. I fed her this morning. Let me come and show her to you. I got this new, I believe they're called rec jars. I got this new rec jar for Christmas. It has measurements on the side. So I fed it, and it was around 1 inch this morning, and now it's grown to almost 2 inches, I believe. Actually, I think it's gotten so active that it has started to go back down. That's what you'll notice if you fed it and then you leave it out for too long, it'll start to go back down. Usually they say feed 12 hours before you use, and I fed mine this morning like 9 hours ago, maybe 10 hours ago. So I've got some really active starter here. It's okay, I'm gonna use it anyway, because if you think about it, when you put together your dough, you're essentially feeding your starter again. So yes, you want to make sure it's active, but I've actually used like from cold starter before and made a good loaf. So I feel like people on the internet really overcomplicate things with sourdough, I'm gonna be honest, and I don't think it needs to be that complicated. So you've got your starter, you fed it 12 hours ago, 10 hours ago, 8 hours ago, it just came straight from the fridge. What you're doing with the flour is you're feeding your starter. So that fermentation you get is basically the same as feeding. Does that make sense? It's just in a bigger quantity. So I'm gonna put, because I'm making a double batch, I'm gonna put about a cup of this into my bowl. And then usually it's half a cup with 1 1/3 cup water, so I'm going in with 1 cup and 2 2/3 cup water. Math. Okay. Taking my Danish whisk, you can use a fork, you can use a regular whisk, whatever you want. And I'm just getting my starter nice and incorporated into my water. So it's like dissolving into your water. So basically what it's gonna look like is some frothy milk. I'll bring you in closer so you can see. See, you've got some frothiness going on. It looks about the color of milk. Everything's incorporated. You're good to go. Thinking I might have to go and get some more flour. Not to store anything, just to where we store the flour. But my dog is pretending to dig on the couch. Okay, so usually I put in about 2.5 to 3 cups when I'm doing my single batch. Well, I'm gonna start out with about 5 cups of flour and see where that gets me. And again, people on the internet will tell you you need a gram scale, that you need to weigh everything needs to be exact. And I have not found that to be true. Are you baking your bread for a Michelin star? Are you baking it for a micro bakery? Even then, that, in my opinion, would be a bit much. Because unless you're looking for the absolute most perfect sourdough loaf of your life, eyeballing it gets you pretty much right about there. And it gets you a really good loaf. Back with my flour. Okay, so I have about 3 cups in there, that's what I said. Follow a recipe when you first start. I will link the recipe below that I use to learn how to make sourdough. Use those measurements, but again, this recipe gives you both grams and it gives you cups, okay? So like, not a big deal. But once you kind of get a feel for it, you'll notice that you just like have an eye now for like the texture that you want of your dough. And now I'm gonna go in with my same Danish whisk and try to gently incorporate it into the water. I'm being like more gentle than usual because I'm doing a double batch and my bowl obviously is more full. So already feeling like I'm going to want to put more flour in here. I'll show you what it looks like once I kind of get all of the water incorporated. Because what you want for your initial dough is something that seems to be slightly like too dry. Like, I feel like I want to add some more water. No, you don't, because the flour hydrates the longer it sits with the water. So let me show you. You can't really see any dry flour in here. It's all wet flour. That is too wet because when you come back after you let it sit for about 30 minutes before your first stretch and fold, you'll see that it like is noticeably even more wet. So it'll be really hard to handle. So I'm gonna go in with 1/2 cup. I'm gonna go in with a full cup because again, this is just practice. I can just tell that even with a 1/2 cup, it would still be too wet. So I use 2.5 to 3 cups typically of flour. This, I started with 5 and this is 6. So this is right around where I want to be. I'm going to put cling wrap on the top of this. They do sell like shower cap kind of things. Honestly, I should get, because I mean, I hate to waste this plastic. I just like, I've never thought to do it until I'm making my sourdough, which obviously doesn't help me in that moment. So I would recommend getting that. This is so that your dough stays hydrated. It keeps the moisture locked in. Okay. Set it aside for 30 minutes to rest and hydrate. One thing I did want to add is some people will feed their starter again and then like keep, it depends on how often you use your starter and how often you make sourdough. I will probably make one loaf every other week. 1 or 2 loaves every other week, just depending on how I'm feeling. We don't strictly eat sourdough bread in this house, so I'm not making it all that often. It's just kind of a hobby for me. So I don't feed it. I don't do anything except for put it in the fridge. That keeps your yeast inactive. And when you want to use it again, pull it out of the fridge. I let it warm up just a little bit just to be easier to work with. I feed it as normal and then I use it like you saw me do right now. So I have a few minutes, probably a bit more, waiting for my dinner to be ready, and I thought maybe let's talk about some, I don't want to say New Year's resolutions because I feel like that's taboo, that's out. I think it's just taboo to set some New Year's resolutions, and I feel like the majority of people get discouraged and they don't meet their goals. There's a lot of talk, especially in like Chinese medicine and stuff, about how like the winter is not a good time to be trying to attain goals, because it's a very it's like a hibernation type of season. It's not like the go-getter type season, you know. You call it spring cleaning. Spring is the best time to be being a go-getter. Does that make sense? So I don't want to talk about New Year's resolutions per se, but I made a vision board for 2025. I thought it would be a good idea to do it, to kind of set my intentions for the year and to make it like my background and just continually remind myself of these things. And it's not like any particular goals of like lose weight, get in shape, build muscle mass, like any specific goal. It's really just kind of like, I think it'll be better if I just show it to you. So I'm gonna put it on the screen and I'm going to talk through it. So I created this on Canva, and the major words on my vision board are faith, vitality, and growth. So vitality for me, well, let's look up the definition of vitality, shall we? Vitality, the state of being strong and active, energy, or the power-giving continuance of life present in all living things. So I didn't want to pick wellness, I wanted to pick vitality because I just really want to embody like being vital, being energetic, being strong, whatever that means to you. Putting the right things into my body, fueling my body to do the things that it was made to do. That's what I want to embody this year, is setting my worries aside and allowing my body to do its job, knowing that it was made to do what it's doing. Giving it the right resources, but not stressing over it. Faith. I, this year, have kind of made my faith more of a priority, but it by no means is my number one thing. It's not always on my mind. But this coming year, I really want to try to make it like at the forefront and just being a faithful person and always trying to look at things in like a positive or like how it's meant to be, or looking at it through a biblical lens instead of like things happening to me or whatever. Like it's all in a plan, and trying to not get discouraged and just really leaning into my faith. Anyway, where were we? The next one, live slowly, kind of just, that's what it is. Like I need to live more slowly. I don't want to keep up like such a fast pace. Like everyone's always in a rush. We're driving and you know, wait at a stoplight for like 1 extra second when it turns green and someone's honking at you. I want to consistently remind myself that why am I in a rush? You're not in a rush, so slow down. The next one, I want to bake more bread. And then in the bottom, I have a couple photos, one of like the woman gardening and then one of the flower stand. I'm prioritizing my cut flower garden this year, and I want to make it into a side business, so that obviously had to make the board. And then the last two are like one of the stacks of books and one of like the little corner in a home. I want to read more this year. I want to prioritize reading. I want to get off of my tablets and social media and all of that, and I just want to read. I used to love reading. I still love reading. I just don't do it enough, so I want to do that. And the one of the, like the little chair in the corner is just like, I just want to create a really nice homey space wherever I end up this year when I'm not at my parents'. I want to prioritize making like wherever I am into a nice home. So with that, I think my stuffed shells are going to be ready. So I will be eating and probably watch a video or something while I eat, and I'll come back to you guys for my first stretch and fold. So ciao for now. Back. It is more than 30 minutes later, but that's okay. It was probably 45 minutes. Here's my dough. Straight off the bat, I can tell it's already more hydrated. A little trick that I like to do so that I don't get like too much stickage on my hand is wet my hand a little bit. And then you just slide your hand down the side of the bowl. Pick up a piece of the dough, stretch it, and fold it back over itself. First one might seem a little bit like the consistency of your dough isn't like what you thought it would be, or it's a bit chunkier or whatever. It will smooth out over your stretch and folds over the next couple hours. So don't be stressed about the texture or anything like that. It will become much more smooth. You really only need to go around a couple of times. I just sometimes give it some overkill, especially when I'm talking to you guys on camera. So here's what she looks like now. It does look a lot more smooth. Don't panic if yours doesn't look super duper smooth, like I said. And set your timer for another 30 minutes. Come back. We'll do the same thing, but with another added step. My dishwasher's or my washing machine's really loud right now, but this is where we add in our salt. Regular recipe is 2 teaspoons, and since I'm doing a double, I'm gonna do 4. So there's different ways people add their salt. Some people add it with water, some people pre-dissolve it in water and then add it, and then some people just go straight for it. I've tried all the ways, and I always find that adding the extra water for me personally makes my dough too hydrated and like difficult to handle when I'm going to shape it. So it's a little bit annoying to incorporate the salt without having the extra water. But for me, the final product is better. I'm gonna get this all mixed in there, and then we have a couple more stretches and folds, and then it's bulk fermentation. Okay, well now I have my dryer on, so it's never quiet around here, but I'm doing my last stretch and fold and putting her away for the night. So show you what it's looking like right now. One more time. When it comes to the bulk fermentation, so it really depends a lot on the temperature or the climate of your own house. Here we, in the wintertime, put the heat down at night because it does get like warm upstairs, so downstairs it'll be a bit cooler. So I would say for me, in my like 64-degree house overnight, that this should probably get a good 12 hours to bulk ferment at least. For someone who's doing this in the summer, or if you're keeping your heat around 68 potentially, it might be a little less time, so just be cognizant of that, because you can definitely over ferment during the bulk fermentation phase. So just be aware of that. I personally have just like baked my bread anyway, and it comes out just fine. I've never had it really do terrible things for me, so I would say just bake it anyway, but definitely do be cognizant of your internal climate. So yeah, all right, I'm gonna cover this and then I'll see you in the morning. Good morning. This was about 12 hours later when I decided that the dough was ready to be shaped. So I'm putting some flour down on my counter and then being very patient trying to get this dough out of the bowl. It's a bit sticky, but with some patience, and I use the little KitchenAid scraper thing, or is it like the Pampered Chef. I use the little brown Pampered Chef scraper thing to help it out. And here, because I made a double batch, I am dividing it into 2 different pieces. And then to make sure it doesn't stick while I'm working with the other half of the dough, I'm just putting some more flour down. There's a couple different techniques to shape your dough. This is the technique that I learned first, and it works for me. So I laminate the dough into like a rough rectangle shape, making sure that I'm not ripping the dough, but trying to get it flat as possible. And then I fold it like an envelope and roll it up, kind of like a cinnamon roll. Once I've completed that, this is when I begin building tension. So this is where I was saying you don't want too much flour down, otherwise you won't be able to build any of that tension, but you're just in a circular motion pushing and pulling your dough, kind of creating tension on the outside, if that makes sense, but hopefully you can follow it based on what I'm showing you here. Then I put some additional flour into my basket and on my loaf and flip it in upside down into my basket. You can also use a bowl just with a tea towel in it. So here's where I had put my loaf aside for about 10 minutes, and then I'm building some extra tension by taking the outside of the dough and kind of pinching it together. And then these are ready to do your second proofing. So I put a wet towel over the top. You can use plastic wrap, but I prefer a wet towel. It keeps the moisture in. And usually I will have this in the refrigerator all day while I'm at work for like 8 hours. But this day I had kept it at room temperature for like 2.5 hours to proof. And then I put it in the fridge to get the dough cool, because I find it so much easier to score when the dough is cool. So I get my parchment paper out and I flip my dough over onto the parchment paper, and this is where you're ready to score. Do the most, do the least, it really doesn't matter. You don't have to be fancy. I'm not the best at scoring. I like to try to do a little something, but here I'm making my expansion cut, which I would actually recommend not doing until you're done with all your other detailed scoring, but my scoring didn't take too long, so it's just generally encouraged that you do your expansion cut right before you're about to put it in the oven, but it turned out fine. So I preheated my oven to 500 degrees with the bottom half of my Dutch oven in there. I just don't put the top on because it's so much easier to transfer without like having a hot top to worry about as well. So I put my loaf in with the parchment paper, and then I do use a couple of ice cubes, and this just promotes some more steam inside your Dutch oven. It's not necessary, but I just like doing it. And this is the 20-minute wait for my loaf, and this is the exciting part, to see how it's starting to come together. but this is where I will bump my oven temperature down to 450 and put the loaf back in for about 10 to 12 minutes to get a nice crispy ear. Some people like it a little bit more done, some people like it a little less done. I like it when it's golden brown and there's just a little bit of like darkness on the ear. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. These are how my loaves turned out. I'm really happy with it. They tasted really, really good, and as you can see, sourdough shouldn't be that complicated. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.